Good morning and welcome to the video for Monday, January the 11th. This is going to be a lesson for 5th grade covering Go Math lesson 6.4. I feel like I just did this, but I was actually doing something similar with 4th grade. So today we're working with common denominators and equivalent fractions, which we worked on a little bit last year. I kind of wish that they did more of this particular thing when we work on it in 4th grade because it might help some people get this idea a little bit easier. But that's okay. Um, we will be working with a couple different strategies. So for the first one, we can use a common multiple or common denominator using a common multiple of our denominators to get our equivalent fractions. So we are starting with two 1-acre gardens. One had 3 sections of flowers and the other had 4. She plans to divide both gardens into more sections so they each have the same number of equal size sections. And so what we want to do is find a common denominator for 3 and 4. So we can do that by multiplying the denominators together. And if we do that, that would give us 3 times, wow, thanks. 3 times 4, which is going to be 12. This program has been having the gremlins all day today. Crashing, locking up my computer. All right, so 3 times 4 is going to give us 12. And then we want to figure out how many parts we would be counting. So we could do that um, by basically going ahead. Oops, and we are going to divide the 1/3 part into fourths. So let's say I'm taking this part, and then I'm also taking 1/4 part and dividing it into thirds. When I do that, for the fourths, I'm going to go ahead and cut across here, and cut across here, and cut across here. And so that's going to give me 12 total squares. I would be counting 4 of those squares, so that would give me 4 parts over 12. For the 1/4 side, I would be doing something similar. I am going to, I guess, do that here and here. And so I've got 12 again. This time I'm only counting 3 parts out of 12 to do it that way. So another way we can use a list, so we can count by threes. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. If I work with fours, I'm going to go way past 24. So I get 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, and 32. And we can circle the common multiples. So in this case, I've got 12s on both lists. I have 24 on both lists, and that's where it would end. So my two set of numbers that I could use for our common denominator would either be 12 or 24. So let's say we already did the one for 12s. Let's do the one for 24s. So to get from parts over 3 or parts over 4 to parts over 24, I need to use multiplication. And so in 4th grade, we worked on a strategy where we were multiplying. And so we might have done something that looked a little bit like this. So I'm going to get 1/3 times, and I probably don't need to make it quite that long. So let me scoot that out a little bit. And then we'll put our equal sign. So hopefully that looks a little bit familiar to you. Think about the number of times we can count by 3 to get to 24. that is going to give us the number that we would multiply the top number by as well. So pause the video if you need to. We could actually use our list to help us. So we'll use the list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can do 3 times 8 to get to 24. And so that means I need to do 1 times 8, and that's going to give me 8. So one of my fractions is going to be 8 parts over 24. And to find the other one, I need to count by 4s till I get to 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts over 24. And so both gardens can have either 12 or 24 sections. All right, so in this case, we can use the least common denominator. So if we're working with parts over 4 and parts over 6, we are going to get something similar to what we got down here with the numbers, because all of our multiples of 6 are multiples of 3. So we can make our list again. I'm going to say go ahead and do the first 5 numbers because we're very quickly going to end up, if we just want the smallest common denominator, we don't need to make the list super duper long like we did with 8 for the first one, even though we didn't write in all 8 of those. So pause the video if you need to do that for a moment. I want you to go ahead and give me the first 5. So I'm going to start with 4. Then we go up to 8, then 12, oops, then 16, and then 20. Actually, we can do one more, and that'll get us up to 24. And then for 6s, we can do 6, 12, and I've already hit a match. 18, oops, and 24. So our least common denominator is going to be the first pair of numbers that are matching. I'm circling those here. And so our least common denominator is going to be 12. And so as we keep going, we are going to use this multiplication strategy again, this time to get to fractions that are parts over 12. So I can do 3 times 3, that's going to give us 9. 4 times 3 is going to give us 12. Think about how many times we can count by 6 to get to 12. That's going to give us 2 times, which is also going to be the number that we write up top. So 1 times 2 is going to give us 2. And so 3/4 can be rewritten as 9/12. And 1/6 can be written as 2/12. All right, so what I would recommend for number 1 is to go ahead and make a list. I want you to make a list working with our multiples of 6 and our multiples of 9. You can do that relatively quickly. We want to find the first number that overlaps, and that will be the easiest way to do that. So go ahead and think about that for a moment. When you are ready, go ahead and hit play. So for this one, I can go ahead and start with 6, then 12, then 18. If I start with my 9s, I would get 9 and 18. So what I normally recommend is to actually start with a larger number and do maybe like five groups of the larger number, and then you start with the smaller number and count up until you find the first one that overlaps, and that will be your least common denominator. So our common denominator that we want to use for this is going to be 18. And so I can do 9 times 2 to get to 18, which means I would do 1 times 2 is 2. And I can count by 6s 3 times. So I could do times 3 to get to 18. That is a horrible looking 3, but I'm also trying to write it very small. So now it almost looks like the euro sign if I zoom in enough. Well, maybe not. It looks more like a really messed up looking letter E than anything. Or actually, no, it's not an E. Never mind. I'm tired. If you hadn't guessed, I'm very tired. I'm not functioning at my peak capacity. Plus, the computer acting up on me is really throwing me off today. So I'm trying to work very quickly before I have more repeated crashes. I think it's my whiteboard app is actually the culprit here acting up because I'm watching that part kind of stutter and then everything goes. So I'm gonna have to hopefully be done with these videos soon, and then maybe at some point find an alternative to using this particular one that comes with Windows. I would like you to do, let's do number 2 and number 4. I will say that number 3 is relatively easy because I can actually count by threes to get to 9. So I'm only having to change one of the two fractions for that. So I would much rather us do number 2 and number 4. So we are going to start by making a list. Let's do five groups of the larger denominator first, and then we are going to work with the smaller one making a list to figure out what number comes first to give us our common denominator. And that will be a whole lot easier. Now for this one, we can probably just go ahead and multiply the two bottom numbers together because, spoiler alert, we are going to be able, the least common denominator for this is the answer of this. We can do something different for this one, perhaps. So let's go ahead and pause the video if you need to. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit play. So our common denominator for this one is going to be 15. So if I count 5, 10, 15, that's 3 times 5. It's going to end up working out. And then for that, what I can do is I'm going to multiply my left-hand side times 5. That's going to give me 5 over 15. I'm going to multiply the right-hand side by 3, and that is going to give me 3 over 15. For this one, if I make my list, let's do that here where I can kind of have this in the middle of the screen. 15. It can't count by 9s to get to 15. Now we got 30. I cannot count by 9s to get to 30. Then we have 45. I can count by 9s to get to 45. 9 times 5 would give me 45. So I've got 3 times 15. Oops. 3 times 15 to get to 45. That's going to give me 3 parts over 45. And then for this one, we are doing parts over 45, but we are multiplying our top number by, wow, that was really bad. Almost salvaged it. Let's All right, so 5 times 2 gives us 10 for that. All right, let's see. Let's do number 6. I like this one. So in 4th grade, we learned a bunch of divisibility rules. If we want to figure out if we can count by 6s to get to a number, we need to have an even number that is a multiple of 3. So we can use our rule for finding if a number is a multiple of 3. And if it's an even number, then that would give us also a multiple of 6. So if we go ahead and make our list of 21, we can do 21 which obviously we can count by threes to get to 21. And then but we can't count by sixes. And then I can go up to 42. So now I have a multiple of 3. So I can do 4 plus 2 gives us 6. 6 is a multiple of 3. So this number is a multiple of 3. To also be a multiple of 6, it has to be even. This is an even number. So that means 42 is going to be our common denominator. So I can do the 421 side times 2. And so that would give us something that looks like this. And then we would get 8 over 42. Now from there, we could possibly even reduce the fraction. We are not going to do that. We are not going to do that. So this one I can do 7 over, 6 times 7, which means that would give us 7 over 42. Again, we're not going to try to reduce when we're done because that's just going to put us right back where we started. Although this one would give us, no, it actually would give us the same thing. So yeah, we don't need to reduce it when we're done. We could try that to make sure that we did it properly. If you didn't do the multiplication part correctly, then that would be one way you could figure that out. We're running really short on time. And I will take the blame for that. I do want to do one more of these problems. Let's do number 14. So Mr. Nicholson tells the class that they double the least common denominator for 2, 5, and 15 to find the number of the day. And I'm not even worried. I don't even care what the top numbers are. We need to find a common multiple of 2, 5, and 15. So what can we do to find that? And what is that number? So pause the video if you need to. I want you to think about this for a moment. And then when you're ready, I will give one more suggestion, and then I'll give you the actual answer. So pause the video. And assuming you've done that, one of the things that we can do is go ahead and rule out this number. If I'm working with 15s, I have to count by 5s to get to 15s anyway. So we can eliminate the 5s. That's not going to matter. So what we need to do is figure out what multiple of 15 is going to be an even number. And that first one of those, so the least common denominator is going to be 30. But then it says that we need to double the least common denominator to find the number of the day, which means the number of the day should be 60. So again, I can do 15 and then count up to 30. So 15 times 2. And so that would give us our common denominator because I can count by 2s to get to 30. So if we double our least common denominator, then that would give us 60. All right. So for the homework, it looks like we are doing 2 through 9 on the front. So again, we want to find the common denominator for these first 5 problems. And then we need to go ahead and use that to get the equivalent fraction. So in some cases, we might be able to count by the smaller number or smaller denominator to get to the larger numbered denominator. So for instance, I might be able to count by 3s to get to 6s. If I can do that, when I find my equivalent fraction, then I'm just changing one of those 2 parts. So think about what we did earlier in the lesson to do that. Let's see, 7, 8, and 9, we just want to use the least common denominator. So that's going to be an extra step. We need to find the least common denominator, and then we are going to write an equivalent fraction for both of those fractions. On the back, we are looking at number 1 through 6. So pair of fractions. that use the least common denominator and are equivalent to both of those. Number two, Joseph says there's 5/8 of a ham sandwich left and 1/2 of a turkey sandwich left. What is not a pair of equivalent fractions? You know what? I'm going to actually cut that one. I don't like that. So, I mean, you could, like, if you want to go ahead and say, you could pretty much put anything you want and just guess random numbers and give a fraction that's not an equivalent fraction. So I don't see any purpose in doing that. Number three, we want to go ahead and compare these two decimal values. We're talking about minutes. So we are starting at our largest place value. If those are the same, then we go to the next largest place value until we have one that is larger than the other, and then that's going to be the larger of the two decimals. We are doing this number of bottle caps divided by 57. This one's multiplication. Remember that our decimal point gets moved over after we are done multiplying. And then the value of this particular expression. Remember our order of operations, everything in parentheses first. And then going from left to right, we do all of our multiplication and division problems. Then we do all of our addition and subtraction parts. That concludes everything for today. Sorry this video is a little choppy. I'm kind of thrown off because I'm really fighting my computer and exhaustion and everything else. So I apologize if this isn't quite as high quality as what you're used to as far as explanations. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in Google Classroom. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you or actually, I'll see you tomorrow. Not on Wednesday. We're still doing a lesson on Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow.